have a special treat today, so I'm really excited. It's really an honor for me to have Congressman Earl Blumenauer with us this afternoon. He has represented Oregon's 3rd Congressional District since 1996. He is a true public servant and a tireless advocate for resilient food and farming systems, the protection of public lands, and animal welfare. Congressman, thank you so much for being here today. Again, it's an honor. Let's give him a round of applause.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, it's Farm Bill season again all of a sudden.
Yes.
Those 5 years went by quickly. A lot
well, it's
happened.
always Farm Bill season,
Right.
as you know.
It is.
But
so,
especially this year.
Yeah, and I think I remember you in 2018 saying that Farm Bill was a missed opportunity for lots of different things. And I'm wondering if you can sort of expand on that.
Well, I've been involved with 4 farm bills. And each time, it seems like there's more evidence about how out of the Farm Bill is with the needs and wants of Americans who eat, who produce, our healthcare system,
Sure.
the environment. I'm excited that it seems like the public is more and more aware of the dynamic. But we're up against big food, we're up against institutionalized efforts, and not enough people focus on how seriously deficient the farm system is. I came to Austin thinking that maybe we could start the Austin Declaration of the Farm Bill of Rights.
Wow, that would be exciting. Tell me more.
Well, there's so much in the farm policy that is at variance with what Americans want and need. We pay too much to the wrong people to grow the wrong food, the wrong way, in the wrong places. Other than that, it's just fine. And it is such an anomaly. I mean, the more I have been able to get into these issues, the more concerned and frustrated and, frankly, angry. You know, I'm thinking of that scene from Broadcast where the guy was mad as hell and wasn't going to take it anymore.
Are you there? Are you there now?
I'm pretty much there in terms of the needs and opportunities, the mismatch. There's just too much dealing with corporate farming, monoculture, big food, the petrochemical base.
Sure.
And it's so counterproductive.
Do you feel hopeful that the White House has made commitments on hunger, health, and nutrition? Because you mentioned the wrong food.
Yeah.
And the wrong food has really disastrous consequences for public health, for farmers, for farm workers.
Yeah. Well, I am encouraged. Now, to be candid, I mean, I like Tom Vilsack, but he was not exactly my first choice for the next secretary.
Who was?
But I will tell you, I have been really pleased. I think the interim, he's really listened. He's been involved with some of the conversations we've had on Capitol Hill.
Sure.
And is really open to getting more out of this system. The White House Conference on Food is very encouraging. And at the same time, the commitment that this administration has to a low-carbon, equitable future, the extent to which that ripples through the food system, I think that's really an area of optimism.
Absolutely. And I'm wondering, throughout your career, the food and agriculture have been something that you've taken such a lead on, such an interest in. Do you feel more hopeful than you say 20 years ago?
Well, no. 20 years ago, I thought it was obvious that we should make these changes. I went to Congress in a special election, and so, it was like I got transferred into a new high school the last 2 months of the school year as a freshman, and I didn't know where the cool kids sat. But one of the things that happened, I got unsolicited contribution with the word sugar in the name of the group. And I started looking at that. What's this about? Well, when I got a sense of how the sugar subsidy system works, I rapidly joined in an effort to try and that solved the problem of those unsolicited anonymous contributions. But sugar, just as an example, is like 1% of American agriculture. They gave 17% of the political contributions.
Wow. Incredible.
There's a dynamic, and there's so many people in big food, food industrial complex, or whatever you call it. They are there 24/7, every day of the year, with certified smart people cranking out information, the political contributions, the media. We've been outgunned and outpersoned.
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I think there are indications of change.
Yeah.
I will tell you, I was really excited. My legislation was the restaurants bill,
right,
that provided
Thank you.
100,000 grants totaling $26.9 billion to 100
Please.
to 100,000 independent restaurants. And it was really exciting watching that group coalesce,
Right.
and people understand how important local supply chains are.
Absolutely.
And it gave me a sense of what's possible in terms of mobilizing support. And in the midst of all that chaos, we were able to carve out almost $30 billion
Right.
and watch the Independent Restaurants Coalition come together. We can do that in other areas
Sure.
dealing with food.
And that happened very quickly, and it had such a tremendous impact, like
Yes.
you said, on farmers,
Right.
tremendous impact on farm workers. The whole sort of supply chain was impacted.
$1 trillion supply chain, people recognized how brittle it was.
Absolutely.
And that also, I think, served as a wake-up call to how vulnerable we were for the stresses of the pandemic. I mean, the supply chain is so screwed up. Pork production.
Mm-hmm.
If the pigs are not slaughtered right on time, they get too big to be able to process. We ended up destroying tens of thousands of pigs the same way we dumped milk on the ground.
So much food waste.
The supply chain is so brittle, and this is an indication that the way that we've set it up to provide the cheapest food is not the lowest cost.
Right.
And it has severe consequences to people up and down that food chain.
Can you talk more about those externalities? Because I think many eaters, all of us, don't really understand the true price of our food system right now.
Well, I mean, just sort of scrolling back, part of the problem in terms of so much industrial meat production, we are being slowly medicated by all of the antibiotics that are fed to the animals who are raised under these confined feedlot operations, what happens with hogs and chickens.
Mm-hmm.
So they have to medicate them, otherwise they wouldn't survive. But we are being exposed to those antibiotics, and we increasingly are at risk. What happens in terms of water pollution?
Sure.
You know, we've got 89 million acres of industrial corn production. Now, this is corn that you cannot eat unless it is processed. And the runoff from these vast monoculture farms is so high in nitrogen and it's created a dead zone at the mouth of the Mississippi River, variously the size of Delaware or Connecticut,
or
depending
New Jersey.
on New Jersey was the latest one, I think.
Sure.
And it has so many negative consequences for the seafood industry.
For sure.
I mean, you just go through the line in terms of what we are doing with this industrialized approach. And it further removes people from the process of where their food comes from. If I had my way, I would mandate a school garden in every school across the country. to teach kids how to grow food, how to prepare food, how to appreciate it. I've had some experience with school gardens in my community, and these are things basically that the parents will into existence. There are bake sales and spaghetti dinners, but it makes such a difference for those kids.
Absolutely. They learn about so much mathematics, geography. They can learn a lot of things through the
asparagus, broccoli.
Right.
And it's interesting. This was at an elementary school, and I heard from the people at the middle school that these kids go into that they could tell the kids that came from the school with the school gardens and the education.
Wow.
They literally looked healthier.
Wow. That's amazing.
And that's the other thing we should be doing. We know that healthy food is more expensive than stuff that's mass-produced. We ought to allow the healthcare system, which, I mean, we pay twice as much for our healthcare as other rich countries, and we get mediocre results for it.
Right.
Why don't we enable the healthcare providers to write a prescription for and pay for healthy food? There are experiments going on now with healthcare providers, insurance companies, and hospitals, and it pays them to do that. And this is part of how we have a sustained supply chain for healthy, fresh, nutritious food. One of the things we have to change with this Bill of Rights for our Agricultural Declaration of Independence, or whatever we call it, I think that ought to be a program in next year's conference. We have an opportunity to be able to road test concepts like this and be able to have people understand what the benefits and advantages are, and to be able to send the right pricing signals to farmers. I mean, there are billions of dollars of subsidy that go to 8 states for 6 commodities, but people, they call it specialty foods, fruits and vegetables, nuts and berries. Give me a break. It's food.
It's real food.
Real food. And they get nothing. They are shortchanged with the disaster relief.
Right.
Because areas like mine that has a very diverse agricultural base, it's not set up to be able to meet the needs of many producers with many crops. It's for those big commodities. Right. And it's another area where we disadvantage people who are growing food.
For sure. One of the things that I appreciate about you, Congressman, is that you made a concerted effort to go talk to farmers and farm workers and people involved in the entire food supply chain. And you did that before the last Farm Bill. You continue to do it. Why is that so important to you?
Well, it was very interesting for me to go out to farmers and ranchers, wine growers, nursery people in Oregon. I went around for 2 months and ask every one of them, what would a farm bill look like if it was just for Oregon? I was at the School of Agriculture at Oregon State University, and I asked them that question. And evidently nobody had really put it in those terms. It would look much different. So we designed a farm bill that would work for Oregon. Ironically, it would work for any state that had a diverse agricultural base and people trying to protect that supply chain.
Sure.
And it's important that we understand what the possibilities are, the problems, because the majority of people, when you talk to them, they don't agree with the elements that we have with the Farm Bill and its protection for a few states and a few commodities.
Right.
They actually believe in a more diverse food supply chain
Sure.
and humane treatment of animals. I mean, 11 billion animals that we're going to slaughter. I mean, part of what we ought to have is a conversation for people who want less meat or no meat, humane meat, rather than, again, the industrial scale production, heavily subsidized, but cheats the people who want to do it right.
Right, and causes all those environmental and health concerns that you talked about earlier. I've heard people like you call for a farm bill that is, called something different, like the Food and Farm Bill. And why hasn't that sort of taken off? Why are we sort of separating food and agriculture?
Well, I think we're doing a better job of the outreach. More and more people that I talk to understand that this is all about food and farm. It's the system. It's how you meet the needs of the public, farmers, and other values like the environment and animal welfare. So I think that movement is gathering steam. But again, I think this might be a major theme of next year's conference.
Thank you. I appreciate all this input.
To take all these energetic people who are circulating through and keeping Austin weird, let's put them to work developing food policy that will make a difference.
Yeah, those policies really need to happen. Another thing that I think you've done is really sort of combine your work on food and farming and agriculture with the environmental movement. And I think the climate crisis has really sort of illustrated how these things are very interlinked. How can we help your colleagues on Capitol Hill understand this more?
Well, I think nature is making our point in terms of droughts, wildfires. The climate crisis is real in the West. I mean, we've had horrific wildfires, floods, droughts that are directly complicated, if not caused, because of the climate crisis. And I think slowly but surely this is coming into the forefront. Looking what's happened at the Colorado River.
Right.
Lowest level that we have seen since the construction of those massive dams. We have overcommitted nature and can't deliver. We're farming in the desert in the Klamath Basin. Luckily, it looks like we're going to be able to remove 4 dams in the Klamath River.
Wow.
But these are areas that the bill is coming due. People understand it. And the range of disasters that we have are more frequent and more severe. And I think we're gaining momentum in that regard.
And do your colleagues feel the urgency that people like me feel, that we need to do things now and we need to do them quickly?
More and more. I am pleased that these things we're talking about, if we were having this conversation with some of them 15 years ago, they'd look at us funny.
Sure.
Now people are nodding their heads. They're a part of those conversations. There are a number of people that are promoting nutrition, that care about a more environmentally sustainable system of agriculture, and animal welfare. I think these are really taking root.
Absolutely, very interlinked. In the minute and a half that we have left, I understand that you're preparing to introduce something kind of exciting in addition to this declaration that you've been proposing.
Well, we've been dealing with the problem of deforestation. And as you know, one of the real challenges in terms of climate is the loss of forest lands, particularly in Latin America. And they're clearing these forests in order to grow commodity crops, cocoa, soy. What we're proposing is that we would deny access to the American market for any commodities that were grown on illegally harvested land. I am pleased that some of... I am pleased that my friend Senator Schatz is co-sponsoring it. We're seeing interest with Europeans. Some of the big companies like Mars and Nestle understand and are cooperating to refine this legislation. So I think we can talk to them in a language they understand,
Sure.
The marketplace, and that could have a profound effect.
Amazing. Thank you, Congressman Blumenauer. This has been so amazing to have you here. Thank you for your service to our country.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.